shows, while many important topics will be discussed in tonight's English language leaders debate, voter turnout is not currently on the schedule. According to Elections Canada, only 62.6% of eligible voters cast a ballot back in the 2021 election. Now, the participation of people aged 18 to 24 specifically dropped from 53.9% in 2019 to only 46.7% in 2021. And first-time voters also dropped from 53.6% in 2019 to 44.7% in 2021. So why are those numbers super significant, and how could it potentially decide who becomes our next prime minister? Here in studio is John Beebe, director and founder of the Democratic Engagement Exchange at Toronto Metropolitan University. It is so great to chat with you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to the show. It's a really interesting time to be talking about all this. And you know, we talked about those stats in 2021. It's not that kind of historic low that we saw in 2008, but when you look at 2025 or 2015, 2019, 2021, we're seeing a decline in voter turnout. So in your mind, what's this election going to serve up for us?
Well, I'm more optimistic about this election. You know, I'm really hopeful that Canadians come together and be united.
Right.
You know, we see high voter turnout in other countries when there's a politics of division. We've obviously seen that in the U.S., where they've had record high voter turnout.
Yep.
I'm really hopeful that, you know, Canadians come together and are united in our opposition to what the 51st state. Like, we want to stand up proud as Canadians,
yep.
And I think we can be like elbows up. Let's vote.
Yeah. So you think that national unity and kind of fighting spirit that you're seeing now could translate into higher voter turnout?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not that many opportunities for us to really, as Canadians, say, you know, what we're proud of, that we believe in our, in our country, in our democracy, and this is such an easy way to do it. Voting is easy in Canada. We're really lucky. You know, you don't even have to be registered to vote. You can just walk in and vote, bring some ID. So, you know, we should be proud of that. And this is a chance to show that unity. So
if folks don't show up to vote in the numbers that you're anticipating or hoping for, just walk us through kind of in detail how that could affect who becomes our next prime minister.
Yeah, I mean, we know that voting does make a difference, right? We've seen that in other countries when people show up. I mean, in the most recent U.S. presidential election, what we saw is a lot of people who historically support Democrats didn't show up to vote.
That's right.
And that's one of the reasons that Trump was elected. So, you know, this idea that, well, I'm just one person, how is my vote going to make a difference, doesn't really hold up, because when we have to remember is that when we're voting as part of a community. We're part of, whatever, we're parents, we're young people, we're older people, we're part of a different ethnic community.
Yep.
These are all people who have interests. And when they don't show up, those interests are lost.
Yeah, well said. And, you know, I talked off the top about especially seeing that quite precipitous decline in the 18 to 24 age group. So, John, how can we incentivize younger people to get out to the polls?
Well, I was just talking to a bunch of younger people yesterday, because yesterday was the last day of on-campus voting that Elections Canada had. And what was great is everybody I talked to, they were interested. They're like, I can vote right now here on campus. That's so great. I'm going to go vote. So what we have to do is actually just talk to people and ask them to vote, explain to them how easy it is. And I think our colleges and universities have a big role to play. They need to get the word out. But I think we also, as friends and colleagues, that's one of the key pieces. You do anything for the first time, it's a little nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
For sure.
And so helping people get over that is a big part of what we have to do.
Yeah, and John, inevitably when we talk about voter turnout, at some point in the conversation, the issue of mandatory or compulsory voting comes up. I believe over 20 countries around the world have this, so it's not a majority of countries, but it's not insignificant. Australia has it. A lot of South America and Central America have it. Different versions. Some are enforced, some are not. What's your take on mandatory voting, and how would it be received here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that Canadians really want to be forced to do anything. I don't think that's sort of in our DNA. I think we can do a lot more, as our communities, as our libraries, as our civic organization, we can invest in our democracy.
Yeah.
But I think when we've seen in other countries that, are most successful, in Australia, I'm glad that they're having mandatory voting. They make it a party. I'd love to see us just make it more of a party on election day.
Interesting.
That would make it more fun. But I think those kind of community building elements are more important than sort of telling people what they have to do. People
Right.
don't love to be told what they have to do.
Yeah, it's such an interesting conversation. Thank you so much for being here to break it down for us.
Thank you.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.